Hi, and welcome back to another ELA online lesson with Miss Maloney. So today we're going to be learning about two things. So let me start you off with the standard of RL.9. Compare and contrast the themes and plots of a story written by the same author or similar characters in a book or in a series. So our objective of today is I can compare and contrast themes, settings, and plots of stories that have something in common, such as the same author. Our video is broken down into 3 parts. Number 1, define, compare, and contrast. Number 2, read 2 short stories. And number 3, model by using a graphic organizer. And we must not forget our video norms. Number 1, please always have some paper and a pencil with a good eraser to take great notes. Number 2, listen carefully for there will be questions throughout our session. And number 3, pause, reflect, rewind, and review if you need to. So let's go into the first part. Let's define compare and contrast. Let's take a look at this new anchor chart of compare and contrast. What does it mean to compare and contrast? Well, when you think of compare, you're asking yourself, how are they the same? When you think of contrast, you're thinking of how are they different? So what are the same about the 2 characters, the 2 plots, the setting, or the 2 stories in this case? What is the difference? So some of the words that we would see under compare, if you're comparing 2 or more things, you might see the words alike, both, same, similar, also, like, or in comparing to. For contrast, you might see the words different, not alike, differ, however, but, although, or in contrast to. So if you see some of these words, you should automatically think that the story or the text is going to be comparing or contrasting 2 or more things. Alright, I think we're ready for our second part. Let's read 2 stories and compare and contrast them at the end. The story of the lion and the mouse. A lion lay asleep in the forest, his great head resting on his paws. A timid mouse came upon him unexpectedly, and in her fright, a haste to get away ran across the lion's nose. Roused from his nap, the lion laid his huge paw angrily on the tiny creature to kill her. "Spare me," begged the poor mouse. "Please let me go, and someday I will surely repay you." The lion was much amused to think that the mouse could ever help him, but he was generous and finally let the mouse go. Some days later, while stalking his prey in the forest, the lion was caught in the toils of the hunter's nest. Unable to free himself, he filled the forest with his angry roaring. The mouse knew the voice and quickly found the lion struggling in the net. Running to one of the great ropes that bound him, she gnawed it until it parted, and soon the lion was free. "You laughed when I said I could repay you," said the mouse. "Now you see that even a mouse can help a lion." The story of the tortoise and the hare. A hare was making fun of the tortoise one day for being so slow. "Do you ever get anywhere?" he asked with a mocking laugh. "Yes," replied the tortoise, "and I get there sooner than you think. I'll run you a race to prove it." The hare was much amused at the idea of running a race with the tortoise, but for the fun of the thing, he agreed. So the fox, who had consented to act as the judge, marked the distance, and started the runners off. The hare was soon far out of sight, and to make the tortoise feel very deeply how ridiculous it was for him to try to race with a hare, he lay down beside the course to take a nap until the tortoise should catch up. The tortoise, meanwhile, kept going slowly but steadily, and, after a time, passed the place where the hare was sleeping. But the hare slept on very peacefully. And when, at last, he did wake up, the tortoise was near the goal. The hare now ran his swiftest, but could not overtake the tortoise in time. Wow, those were some great stories. I hope in your mind as you was reading you were comparing and contrasting the two. But let me model how to compare and contrast these two stories on our graphic organizer. Okay, so now that we have read the two stories of the lion and the mouse and the hare and the tortoise, we will now fill out our graphic organizer, our thinking map RL.9. So here is a Google Sheet of the graphic organizer. At the top I have my name, the class, the date. I will put in the title, The Lion and the Mouse, and in text number 2, The Hare and the Tortoise. Both are by the same author. You might have two different stories by the same author, or you could read two different stories by different authors. But what you are essentially doing is comparing and contrasting both stories. You are putting the characters in the first box, and you are explaining what commonalities or differences, what do the characters have in common, and what are their differences. So the commonalities in the tortoise and the hare and the lion and the mouse is they're both are animals, but they're different kinds of animals. For the setting, the lion and the mouse took place in a forest, but the hare and the tortoise took place on a trail. So both settings took place outside, but the difference is their location. For the plot of the lion and the mouse learns that no act of kindness is ever wasted. After a ferocious lion spares a cowardly mouse that he planned to eat, the mouse later comes to his rescue, freeing him from the approacher's trap. But for the tortoise and the hare, the plot is the hare is confident of winning, so it stops during the race and falls asleep. The tortoise continues to move very slowly without stopping and finally wins the race. So, if I compare both of these plots, the plot in both stories is that the one character did not believe in the other character's ability to either be helped or them to beat them in a race because of what they look like, their size, or pace of how they move. Both characters learned a valuable lesson at the end. The difference in both stories were that one talked about the difference in size and the other one talked about the difference in speed. So what about the theme? Remember, the theme is the message, the lesson that we have learned from these two stories. So, in The Lion and the Mouse, the theme was mercy brings its reward, and there is no being too small that cannot help a greater. So no matter how big or small you are, you can still help someone else. For the tortoise and the hare, the theme is slow and steady wins the race. A journey from the starting line to finish that shows bravery, perseverance, and humility can be found within yourself. So, in both stories, we can say that the theme explains how someone different from you can still help you or do something just as good as you. The difference in the story is the lesson was about judgment and size. The other lesson was taking your time and to believe in yourself. Alright, so now that I've filled out my story element portions of character, theme, plot, and setting, I can now come down to what statements could you make based on the literary elements. So based off of these 4 literary terms, we can say that the lion and the mouse, everyone has a need for the other. For the tortoise and the hare, you can be more successful by doing things slowly and steadily than acting quickly and carelessly. So even though they do not say these in the book, it says, what theme statements could you make based off of the literary elements? So based off of what we have learned about the characters, the setting, the plot, and the theme, what statements can we say that they're trying to tell us? So that is what you're going to put in these 2 boxes. In this last box, it says claim. What statement can you make about the themes of these 2 stories? By either saying, are they the same? Are they the same except? Or are they different because? So I have explained that the themes in these 2 stories were the same but different because they had talked about how not to judge others for being different from you. In the one story, the theme was based on no matter how big or small you are. In the one story, the theme was based on no matter how big or small you are, you can still help others. In the other story, the theme explained how you can still get things done successfully if you take your time. So that is what you're doing this week. If you scroll down, it will be your turn to write your 2 stories that you have read and filling in the story elements, what they have in common and what they have difference. Compare and contrast. So I hope you learned everything you needed to know about how to compare and contrast theme, setting, and plot within 2 stories that have the same or similar characters and author. And remember, you can always rewind this video if you don't quite understand and take notes as you go so you can remember our story element of compare and contrast. So, until next time.